If I asked you, how would you be able to tell if somebody is unhealthy? Most people would say, well, maybe they're a little overweight, but that is not actually, according to Dr. Sean O'Mara, the way you tell whether somebody is unhealthy, because they may look thin on the outside, but have some very dangerous fat that's killing them that they can't see. And there's only one way to see it. And I'm going to tell you how to do that. I'm going to tell you why it's so dangerous and how you can get rid of it in just 2 or 3 months and save your life in the process. Hi, my name's Gail Nichols, and I am the host of the podcast Golden Years Empowerment, where I help people 50 plus to stay strong, sharp, and thrive to 95 plus. And I'm 78. So I'm shooting for that 95 plus or maybe 105 plus, whatever. But to get there, I want to be in healthy condition. I don't want to be decrepit, with a cane, a walker, or worse, which you see a lot of people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's pretty common these days. But what's causing it? It's not what you may think. It's not because you're getting older. You can actually look young, right up until the last minute when you finally go. But there is a very easy, sensible way to do that. And I'm going to show you how. And it's based on proven scientific, actual methods that have been around a long time, but you just have to know what to do and to actually do it. And this is courtesy of Dr. Sean O'Mara. Interesting guy. He used to be a New York City undercover police officer. Pretty tough. And then he didn't like what he saw in the courtroom, so he decided he would become an attorney. So he became an attorney. But then he wanted to influence people better, to become healthier. So he went to medical school and he became an emergency room physician. And along the way, he ate a lot of junk food. He got fat. He got pre-diabetic. He had difficulty with his esophagus. It's called Barrett's esophagus, where it is very inflamed. You have to get scoped regularly. Well, he was a mess physically. And here he is, a doctor in the emergency room in his 50s. And he thought, is this the way it's going to be? He happened to go into the gym at the hospital with a bunch of other doctors. And the younger doctor there, who was very fit, heard him complaining about himself and said, well, have you tried the paleo diet? And Dr. O'Mara said, no, but let me figure it out. And he started following that diet, which I can explain more later. And he dropped a lot of weight. He removed a lot of the excess fat from his body. He was no longer pre-diabetic and he was feeling great. And he thought, well, how come I didn't know this? It's not taught in medical school. And how do I help other people? So he devoted himself to that. And he is now the world-renowned authority on what's called visceral fat, which is the fat that could be killing you. He has a website and he has a book out now with that same name, Growing Better, Not Older. So I will put a link in the show notes to say where you can get that book. If you've seen these bicyclists like Lance Armstrong, or maybe runners, marathon runners, or maybe your next door neighbor that does a lot of running, they're very thin, but they are not healthy. And the reason why is because what's inside of them, the type of fat that's inside of them, is killing them. And there was a very famous runner who used to write books about running and was the icon of running. He dropped dead of a heart attack. People were shocked. Why was that? I'm going to show you why and how you can prevent it from happening to you. And I'm going to make your life a lot easier as well as healthier. The type of fat we're talking about is called visceral fat, the fat you cannot pinch. There's two main types of fat, but visceral fat, which is that green highlighted fat in here, this is your belly button. You're lying flat on the table and you're having an MRI. You lie flat on the table with your belly button up and your back down. And these are your organs in here, the liver, the kidneys. This is your heart. In this MRI, there's a bit of fat around the heart, but I'm going to show you what is more common. But there is a lot of visceral fat. This is your fat, your subcutaneous fat that you can pinch. And from a cosmetic point of view, you don't want a lot of it, but it's not like there's a little bit of love handles going on down here, but it's not the worrisome fat. You could actually be healthy with this kind of fat. You cannot be healthy with this kind of fat. You must eliminate this fat, and especially if it gets around your heart. But what this fat does is it squeezes all these organs. So the more fat, the more it squeezes. And that's not the worst of it. This fat actually gives off toxins, which permeate throughout your body and cause inflammation throughout your body, causing things like prediabetes. As we talked about, subcutaneous fat, that's the fat that you can pinch here, sits right under the skin, and we don't like the looks of it. But visceral fat is completely invisible, and you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So you have to find a way, and I can tell you how you're going to do that. But it is highly metabolically active. So what it does is it poisons you from within. What's the number one killer of people today? It's heart disease. And most people think, oh, that's because your LDL cholesterol is too high. You got to get your LDL cholesterol. No, approximately 60% of people who die of heart attacks have normal LDL levels. It's overhyped. That is not the main cause, but that visceral fat helps raise LDL. It also helps raise your atherosclerosis, which is the clogged arteries, and your triglycerides, the fat in your body. It causes chronic inflammation throughout your body. So you end up with lower blood flow, which raises your blood pressure. Now you're taking pills to lower your blood pressure, but that's not going to help you, really. That's just masking the symptoms. What you need to do is get at the cause, the root cause, which is that visceral fat that's causing this to happen. Type 2 diabetes is on the rise, even in children. This type of fat is now growing in children as young as 4 or 5 years old. You can see that visceral fat inside their bodies. And what it's doing with these young children is squeezing their organs, distributing toxins throughout their body, to the extent where scientists now fear, and this is a shocker, that children with this problem may die before their parents die, because the children will develop all these chronic illnesses and die of a heart attack before their parents die. Isn't that shocking? You don't want that to happen to your children or your grandchildren. The other thing that it causes is cancer and dementia, because the toxins affect how you think and your brain. Now, you can look like Tarzan or Tarnaza, but inside, what's happening really to the body is this fat that's squeezing the organs. So even people who appear lean, they're called TOFIs, thin on the outside, fat on the inside. Dr. O'Mara uses the MRI. You can get an MRI, ask your doctor to order one for you, and then go get it done as a baseline, find out where you are right now, and then also take pictures of yourself in your skivvies, sideways, front ways, pictures of your face. Your face reflects how much visceral fat you have. If you've got a puffy face, and I'm working on mine, because I used to be much skinnier than this, and then my husband died suddenly 2 years ago of a heart attack. He was a skinny guy. It turns out he had all this fat around his heart that caused him to have that heart attack. Well, dealing with the grief, I started eating too much. And I gained 30 pounds. Yes, I gained this on my face and so on. But really what it was happening to me was inside, the visceral fat was now causing my blood sugar to go up. My blood pressure was okay. I exercised a lot. I exercise every day. At least an hour to 2 every day. I play tennis 3 times a week. I do what's called rucking, which is a heavy backpack. I go to the gym. I work out on machines. I walk. I swim. I bicycle. I go paddleboarding on the weekends. I was doing this, but I gained that weight. And I thought, what's going on? So I did a lot of research, and I came across Dr. O'Mara, who I believe is saving my life. When you're measuring your weight on the scale or your BMI, that's not a good measure of whether you've got visceral fat. Look at this heart. This particular artery right here is the real killer. This is called the widowmaker. And this fat around that artery, as well as around the rest of the heart, is what causes heart attacks. And this is growing in children right now, let alone in you. I guarantee you have visceral fat to some degree, more or less. And the love handles also reflect how much you have. It's another sort of measurement of it. But this is called pericardial fat. Peri means around, cardia is the heart. When this happens, you are in big trouble. You have to eliminate it in order to prevent that heart attack from happening. What's causing this is pretty simple, and you have absolute control over this. You can get rid of all your visceral fat in 3 months or sooner. I guarantee you, if you follow this program, you will lose all your excess fat You don't want any visceral fat. There's no amount that is okay. Aim to lose all of your visceral fat. You can do it in 3 months if you take on the challenge, which I did. I'm a nurse. I've lived a healthy life, I thought, and I thought I knew what was going on, but I didn't realize the severity of my problem and the magnitude of the effects of this problem, the visceral fat. The main problem is ultra-processed foods, or any kind of processed foods. Anything that comes in a bag or a box with a barcode, anything that you process that's not straight out of the ground with no added maneuvering to put it into something else, another form. So that's processed. Usually when they try to make it taste better, they add a lot of sugar and seed oils. This triggers visceral fat. Alcohol. I used to like a glass of red wine with my dinner. I thought that was okay. At one point, about 20 years ago, they thought it was okay. Not anymore. Now the research shows that any alcohol triggers visceral fat. It also does a lot of damage to your brain. Alcohol is a toxin. It's a poison, and you've got to eliminate it as much as possible. You know, the occasional social drink, people say, okay, if you want to poison yourself for that occasion, you can. You'll recover after a few days, but just don't do it too often. Okay. Poor sleep. Now, who gets enough sleep? 7 to 8 hours is ideal every night. Sometimes we can't do that because of other life happening, children, travel, late night working, but it's so important to get enough sleep and to make it a routine every night. Go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time. And if you do that, your body likes that consistency. That will help reduce the visceral fat, because if you have a disturbed sleep, it increases your hunger as well. If you've ever noticed you haven't had enough sleep, you're irritable, you go and reach for something to eat, and it's usually something that's not all that great for you. First of all, a good idea is to clean everything out of your cupboards and your fridge that has sugar in it. Any excess added sugar, get rid of it. Don't have temptation sitting there so you can't grab it if you want. The next thing is chronic stress. We all have stress. Even the lions and tigers in the jungle have stress, you know, when they're trying to get away from each other. But it's short-lived. With us as humans, we have it all the time. We're either in a job we hate, or in a relationship that's not going well, or we have other outside influences that are bothering us. We bottle it inside. We've got to get rid of that chronic stress through different ways. Meditation. I love tapping. I have another video on tapping, which you can see. That is very good. It's another scientific way of releasing stress and lowering your cortisol. Because when you lower your cortisol, that makes you less stressed. But if you have elevated cortisol, that drives the fat accumulation. And the other one may surprise you. Too much cardio. Who do you know that goes on the Stairmaster or the treadmill for an hour and thinking they're doing something good? Or they say, I'm going to go jogging, or I'm going to go bicycling for an hour. I love to go bicycling for an hour. I love to swim, but that regular type of exercise is not going to get rid of visceral fat. It's going to make you think you're doing something good, and you may get the feel-good hormones going, but it's actually not doing anything for your visceral fat. And it may even add to your visceral fat. I'll show you what you should be doing instead. Make your life a lot easier. So first of all, cut out all processed foods. Dr. O'Mara likes to talk about this one particular client, but on his YouTubes, which I will put a link to one of them in my show notes. He has case studies. He has actual MRIs of children and of adults of all ages. And he shows what their face looks like, what their MRIs look like, what their bodies look like. And he shows his before and after pictures too, and his before and after MRIs. So he walks the walk. He doesn't just talk the talk. And I'm doing the same. But he had a 68-year-old client that lost all their visceral fat in 3 months, 13 weeks, just by eliminating foods. The other is stop eating a lot of vegetables and fruits. And you go, oh, no, fruits and vegetables. I need those. They're supposed to be healthy. I thought so too. Wrong. Now, if they're fermented, like sauerkraut or kimchi or kvass or kefir, which is fermented milk, the fermentation is essential for your gut microbiota. When we eat, we're not feeding us. We're feeding our gut bugs. And those gut bacteria then munch it up and then distribute the goodness to the rest of our body. So we actually need to eat to feed our gut microbiotics. And by having fermented foods, that feeds them the right thing. If you eat non-fermented vegetables and fruits, especially the genetically modified fruits, these blueberries that are this big, when nature makes them about this big, that is all extra sugar. People are eating far too much fruit. Far. It's nature's candy. I love it, but it was killing me. It was causing me to develop a lot of that visceral fat. I hear you. I love avocados. That's actually a fruit. And I have weaned myself down to just a half of an avocado occasionally. So now I focus on meat and fish and eggs. And I have some cheese. It's easy to overdose on cheese too. But the carnivore diet, paleo diet, keto diet, where you lower your carbohydrates below 20, ideally below 10 total grams of carbs a day. That takes some doing, because most people have 200 to 300 grams of carbs a day. But if you can bring it down to 10 to 20 gross amount of carbs per day, you're good. If you can get it to 0 grams of carbs per day, you're really good. The way to go to 0 is to really become carnivore. I scoffed at that for the longest time. I thought, no, I've got to have my salad. I love to get a great big green salad. But guess what? I was putting on the fat, and not so much what you can see, but what was inside. The other thing is strategic fasting. I do what's called 16-8. I eat 2 meals a day. I eat lunch and dinner. That means I eat at noonish, and then I eat around 6 or 7. Let's say it's 7. I then don't eat all night. No snacks before bed. I don't eat all night. Then in the morning, I don't eat first thing in the morning either. I go out and I exercise. Then by noon, now I'm ready to eat. So that 12 o'clock, so from 7 till 12 midnight is 5 hours. And then another 12 hours is 17 hours. So I'm actually overdoing it a little bit. But what I also do every week on Wednesdays rest my body day. So I'll have my dinner at 7 o'clock Tuesday, let's say. I don't eat all night. Then I eat nothing all day Wednesday. I just drink black coffee, black tea, water. You can have bubbly water, but nothing with sugar in it. Don't drink any soft drinks. Don't drink any juice. Just water, black tea, black coffee. And what that allows your body to do is, instead of dealing with what you're trying to feed it, it can now get to work in cleaning up all the mess that has accumulated in your body all that time. So I don't eat anything all day Wednesday or Wednesday night. Now, if I waited until 7 o'clock Thursday morning, that would be 36 hours, which is fine. But I usually let it go until noon or even until 7 o'clock that night. And I've done a 48-hour fast, which is really terrific. And if I really wanted to amp it up a notch, I would go another day. I would not eat all day Thursday or all day Friday. And that would be a 72-hour fast. You don't need to do that every week. I mean, just think how healthy it would be, but you might do it once a month. But I routinely do a 36 to 48-hour fast every week. And just by doing that, I'm getting rid of that visceral fat. I'm rejuvenating my body. It resets my immune system. It's a very good way to maintain and improve your health. Now, remember I said joggers are unhealthy people, but sprinters are healthy. If you look at the types of sports that have sprinting, like soccer, they sprint a lot. They're not constantly running. I play tennis and I sprint around the tennis court. Or if I swim, I make sure that, I'm swimming, but then I'll do it really fast and then I'll slow down and then I'll do it really fast. So sprinting, if you look at the cats in the jungle, the lions and tigers, a lot of the time they're just kind of lounging around, chilling. Then they say, I think I'm a little hungry. I see, I don't know, a rabbit. And they get into the hunting position and then they sprint and they go get that. Then they feast and then they lie back and they may not eat again for hours or days. That's what we need to do. That's the healthy way to do. Sprint, not jog. You don't see them running all day just for something to do. No, they only run, sprint fast when they need to do something. And that's what our ancestors did too. When we were out hunting, we would have to sprint and then we would bring it back. Go maximum intensity every other day is fine. You don't have to do it every day. But what that does is release that fat destroying visceral fat. And they're called myokines, myo for muscle. Another thing that's very helpful is cold exposure or sauna. The process is hormetic stress. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So what I've started doing when I have my shower in the morning, nice and hot, I'm all soapy and everything, I rinse and I go, okay, Gail, just do it. Crank it to the cold and go, wah! And then I do about 2 minutes in the cold shower. And that stresses me, but in a good way, and it helps burn that fat. You can do the same thing if you have a very hot tub bath. Get it really hot, and you sit in it for 15, 20 minutes. especially if you put Epsom salts in there. The magnesium really helps relax your muscles, calms you down. I do that quite often, have a hot tub bath before I go to bed. Really helps me go to sleep at night too, releases a lot of the tension, but it also has hermetic stress on my body. Those heat shock proteins really help reduce the visceral fat. And if you dive into a cold lake, perfect. That's cold shock. Or, I mean, you can go all the way and get these cold plunge things at great expense. You could do that too. But if you do that regularly, 3 or 4 times a week, that's really helping to make you healthier. So also a sauna. I have an infrared sauna in like a bag that I get in, and I crank it up to 176 degrees, and I lay there for about anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. Dr. O'Mara says he prefers if you're in a regular sauna with the hot stones, the dry heat. He's not a big fan of infrared because he says that goes too deep. He likes it to be the other type of sauna. So if you have access to the regular type of sauna, do that 3 or 4 times a week for about 20 minutes, 40 minutes at the most, and crank it up to 175, 200 degrees, just like they do in the Nordic countries. They do that, and then they'd go and jump in the ocean, and then they come back into the sauna again, right? They've been doing that for centuries. That's how they stayed healthy. Okay, so boiling it down, why does sprint beat cardio? If you do 6 to 10 sprints, 10 to 20 seconds each. So if you're out for a walk, just suddenly sprint for 10 to 20 seconds, then slow down, walk, then do it again. Slow down, walk. Do this 6 to 10 times. You can do it in your parking lot. You can do it in your hallway of your building. You don't have to dress up in any special gear to do it. Just sprint, maximum intensity for 10 to 20 seconds. And all you have to do is 3 times a week. So you can exercise 15 minutes 3 times a week. You don't need to do hours. I mean, if you want to do it, you can, but who's got time for that? So 15 minutes of training every 3 days. That's what he does. And he's in perfect. He's 60 years of age, and he shows his physique, and he shows you how he's kept it that way. So what sprinting does is it releases myokines, which are powerful anti-inflammatory molecules from your muscle. And what they do is they destroy those toxins that visceral fat is putting into your body. The long distance cardio, they've proven this, actually raises cortisol, that hormone, that fight or flight hormone. So when you're doing long distance running, it's raising it, which is promoting more fat storage. And that's why long distance runners may look thin, but they actually have horrible amounts of visceral fat inside their body, which is killing them. So this is an example of one of Dr. O'Mara's patients that I alluded to earlier, 68 years old. He didn't do any exercise during this time period. Zilch. He didn't even do the sprints. What he did was he just eliminated his processed foods, 0 minutes of exercise, and his waist, instead of being fat, went down to the way his slim 20-year-old self was. And that's at age 68. And his heart fat reduced dramatically on his MRI. What Dr. O'Mara says is that visceral fat will replace cholesterol as the number 1 health marker. You got to look at the markers to know how are you doing. Just like you look at blood sugar. How's my blood sugar? Am I getting close to diabetes? Well, people have been looking at LDL cholesterol, but that's not the right marker. The right marker is an MRI to see for sure, because there's nothing like seeing to believe. You can imagine, but you've got to see it. So don't worry about the length of life, not more days in your life, more life in your days. That's what we're all aiming for. So eliminate processed foods today, get an MRI to see your visceral fat. If you've already had, by the way, a CT scan, if you get a CT scan, you can see the fat in there, but the fat, instead of looking white, looks dark. If you look at an MRI, the fat looks white. So it depends on which way you're going to look at it. DEXA scans don't really show you as well as an MRI. Try the strategic fasting and embrace cold exposure and sauna. And I'd like to thank you very much for participating today. Please like this and share it with people that you know would need to hear it or might want to hear it, or save it to your favorites. But sharing is caring. And most of all, I'd love for you to subscribe so that you're notified when I have my regular podcasts and videos that I put out on ways to stay strong, sharp, and thrive to 95 and beyond. Gail Nichols, RN. /podcasts for the actual podcast. And my website, if you want to go there, is my name, Gail Nichols. And I have some of my latest videos on there as well as other information. And if you want to work with me, you can send me a message through there. I do personal coaching as well, but I do speaking. I am a reinvention speaker, and I'm in the midst of writing a book called Reinvention, design your new life at any age. So thank you very much once again. I appreciate you. Please leave a note in the comments. Let me know if you like this or what you have questions about or even you disagree with. I would love to hear your comments. I read them all, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.